Welcome everybody to the Drop Lob Pod. I'm your co-host Edik and I'm joined by.
Hey guys, I'm Nathan, and I'm happy to be back for another episode of Drop Lob Pod. We're all the way to episode number 4. So excited to still be going. A little bit impressed that we made it this far. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. We have a lot to discuss, starting with the recap of the WTA Finals with our favorite player, Elena Rybakina, taking
Rocking
out
it.
Sabalenka in 2 sets. She won 5 straight matches. She took home over $4 million, and she ends her season on, I believe, 11 match win streak. And I predicted that Sabalenka would not win, so I'd like to say I got that right. And Nathan predicted that Amanda Anisimova would win, and he got that wrong. So I'll take
Yeah.
one for me, zero for Nathan. But talk to me about that final, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, Elena Rybakina looked incredible in that tournament. Like the fast hard courts just really suit her. Like she is one of the biggest hitters on tour when she's on her game. She's a player that's, once again, as we discussed in previous episodes, has proven that she can hang with anybody time and time again. Pretty competitive record against those top players. And I mean, the serve was working for her, the forehand was working, the backhand was moving. Like she just, she struggles most, as we said, kind of with movement. And there weren't too many drop shots being hit. She wasn't giving her opponents time to get into the ball and really dictate points. And when she's got the upper hand in the points and she's dictating them and she's putting just pressure on with her serve, she's just going to be really difficult to beat for any player in the world. I think that obviously the final against Sabalenka, I believe it was a bagel in the second set tiebreaker. It was 6-3, 7-6, but she either took that lost tiebreaker 7-0 or 7-1. Um, and it was just kind of a theme for her to close matches out in dominant fashion. Against Jess Pegula, she was looking to be in a little bit of trouble in the round before and found her way through in the end, rallying off a couple games, double break. Obviously, against Iga Świątek, she had maybe one of the most impressive performances of the whole season. Lost the first set 6-3 and came back with a 6-1, 6-0 thrashing that I think may be the worst consecutive sets that Iga's ever faced scoreline wise. I know she lost 1-1 to Coco this year, but I don't know if she's ever seen a 1-0 in back to back sets, even from her. Um, I don't know how to say it, like Ostapinko. I know on the ATP tour somebody's their dad, but that sounds right in reverse. Anyway, back to you, Edik. How you
Yeah,
feeling?
Elena obviously finishing the year very strong. I think it's interesting to note that her coach, Stefano Vukov, has been in her corner for the latter half of the year and obviously has had better results. Obviously, well documented that he got suspended by the WTA earlier this year. And also of note that when she was asked to take a picture with the CEO of the WTA, she did not. So obviously some tension there, and we'll be interested to see how she backs it up next year. Also, Sabalenka, clearly the number one for the end of the year, but she struggled in finals, lost obviously WTA finals, lost Australian Open finals, French Open finals, semis of Wimbledon, and she won the US Open. That probably, I'm not going to say saved her year, but if she hadn't won the US Open final, would have been, not a great year by her standards.
Yeah, it's definitely all relative. And by her standards, I think she did need a major title or something of significance to back up a year. I think that's kind of a thing for a world number one to want to show why they're on top by winning at the biggest stage. I'll just add real quick, the COO of the WTA had been outspoken against her coach Vukov throughout the investigations that they did, and that's why she refused to take that picture. It definitely did make a strong stance. And yeah, Rybakina's play definitely was noticeably better with him. Yeah, but Sabalenka, I'm not sure if the year would be a disappointment in her eyes or not. Um, I'd say to me it's probably about average, right within expectations for a player at that caliber. I'm sure she's disappointed just seeing as how close she made it. I mean, every number one player is gonna be pretty competitive, but she is incredibly competitive, incredibly fiery, and very outspoken. When she loses, she's never happy. So I'm sure next year she's won the Australian in 23, made the finals last year, losing to Maddie Keys. So I'm sure that she's going to be more hungry than ever to come out and win that to start the year and prove why she's number one.
Absolutely. So that was the end of the WTA Tour for 2025. We had two tournaments rounding out the year for most of the tour on the ATP. Let's start in Metz for the ATP 250, where we had American Lerner Tien taking out Brit TCU alum Cam Norrie in a very high-level, thrilling final where Lerner Tien was down 5-1 in the third set tiebreaker and ended up taking it and winning the final, coached by Michael Chang, which is some of our older listeners might be familiar with. Did you see the final, and what are your thoughts on that?
I did get to see the final. My thoughts on that were, holy crap, I really want Leonard Tien to win. He won the first set. I was feeling great. He got broken in an absolutely grueling game at 1-1 in the second, I believe, or maybe 1-2 in the second. But he had 3 or 4 game points and faced 3 or 4 break points. Long game, got broken. Momentum went to Nori. He came back in the third set, secured an early break, served first. So he ended up 4-1, 15-40 on return. Nori held from there, came back and broke Lerner, sent it to the tiebreak, went up 5-1, had a not completely open court forehand, but he had an approach shot at about the service line where Lerner's body weight was kind of leaning one way, and he could have taken it down the line to go away from it. He chose to take the easier shot cross court. Lerner Tien passed him, and the rest was history. Lerner took that tiebreak home, I believe, 9-7. Um, I mean, he's just we've said it already a couple times on here, and I've been saying it for a minute before. He's just incredibly smart player. I mean, Daniil Medvedev spoke to it. Other players on tour have now joined in, kind of seeing that he plays chess on the court. Like he's planning a couple shots ahead. He hits very good angles. He plays against like people's momentum. He reads body language very well. Very consistent, very compact strokes. Um, I mean, yeah, he's just a guy that if you do anything wrong, he's just gonna stick in there and he's gonna make you pay for it. There've definitely been some instances this year where he's been hit off the court. Like I know I watched a match with him against Fokina, who had once again another incredible yet disappointing year of failing in finals, where Fokina beat him like 6-2, 6-2, and just hit right through him. And that's going to happen to him from time to time. And I think that's what he'll have to improve on if he wants to be a mainstay in maybe the top 15 or even the top 10 if we're not shooting too high with that. But for now, just that consistency and that grind, especially when it's late in the year, um, plays to his favor. I'll also note two other things, one of which is Lerner did beat Cam Norrie a couple weeks ago as well. So definitely had to be weighing a little bit on Norrie's mind. The lefty to lefty matchup, definitely probably not either of their favorites. Usually, for maybe those that don't know or don't pay attention, being left handed is definitely more rare, even on tour. And the forehand to backhand and vice versa can throw righties off who are often used to playing against other righties. Um, so it's a little bit difficult. Probably pretty disappointing for Cam Norrie, who's had a decent resurgence this year. He was in the top 10 two-ish years ago, had a little fall off last year, came back up this year, had some decent results, just beat Alcaraz a couple weeks ago. Definitely the win of his year. So not a bad ending to him, although I'm sure he would have loved to close that out.
Yeah, the high level final will be interesting to see how Tien matures and evolves next year. He started the year outside the top 100 and is now inside the top 30. So he'll be ranked come Australian Open. And, always that sophomore year, how people adjust to getting into all of these tournaments will be fascinating to watch how he does. We had another ATP 250 tournament, the first time it was held in Greece, and that was another thrilling final, finishing in the third set where Djokovic earned his 101st title against Musetti, who, if he had won the match, would have qualified for the ATP Finals. We'll get to that a little bit later, but there was a lot on the line. Musetti had his chances. I was watching in the groomsmen room and while we were waiting for Connor's wedding. And at 4-all, Musetti had a game point, wide open court, forehand down the line, missed it long, got broken to 5-4. He broke back at 5-all, but ended up losing the match. Djokovic wins the title. He's beaten Musetti 9 out of 10 times now, and he was very emotional. Obviously, he has family ties to this tournament, and
Yeah.
was an interesting way to end the season. I'm sure he is really happy. What did you think of this final?
I'd first like to real quick clarify, is this the tournament that was previously being held in Belgrade, Serbia every year? That
I,
got moved, or
I
is
cannot
this
I
a new
cannot
tournament?
confirm. I don't know. I just know that this was the first time this specific tournament was being held in Greece.
Because I do know that there was a tournament that was being held every year in Belgrade in Serbia, and Novak recently expressed some displeasure with like Serbia and their government, and has moved him and his family to Greece. I don't know if he'll. I assume he won't be changing his flag because I know he recently mentioned that his intention is to hopefully retire at the 2028 Olympics carrying the Serbian flag, which would imply that he intends to keep it. But he is currently living in Greece, so I'm sure it was huge for him to win the title in Greece. I do know that Serbian tournament was on clay, so I'm not sure it's the same one. We'll look into that and get back to you guys next episode and clean that up. Um, but yeah, I also got to watch that match. Novak Djokovic is just inevitable. It's really as simple as that. And I think that obviously part of it has to be mental at this point. Like he's 38 years old, he's pushing towards 39. Um, there's only so much of a physical advantage he can have over these guys that are in their physical prime, no matter how superhuman he is or how hard he's training. But his mental game is just unbelievable. He always believes he can win. He knows when to play the right shots, the right time. And I mean, the first set, yeah, he went down an early break. He lost 6-4, I believe, just never got that break back. Came into the second, they were on serve until 4-3 with Novak up. An incredibly long and treacherous break point at 4-3 that ended with Novak doing a volley while doing the splits, as he often does. Stuck the volley, won the break, had an iconic fist pumping moment there on the ground, and yeah, it did look like it might be over for Musetti. Novak grabbed the early break to start the third, got broken back from 40 love up 3-2, which was incredibly un-Novak. And then, as Coach Edik said, once again got broken serving for the match at 5-all, grabbed it back for 6-5, closed 7-5, and did seemingly squash Musetti's chances to qualify for turn. As we'd mentioned last week on the pod, Felix Auger-Aliassime was holding the lead in the clubhouse for that last spot to turn the ATP Finals, where 8 of them qualify. Musetti had to win this tournament in Greece to get in, unless somebody in front of him withdrew. And what happened there, Coach Edik? Did anybody pull out?
Yeah, so basically, right after the match, Djokovic pulled out of Turin, which meant that Musetti got in the eighth spot, rounding out the field. And I think that's a good segue for the ATP Finals, which just completed its second day. Very similar to the WTA Finals, two groups of four, round robin play, and then you get four semifinalists facing off next weekend. Jimmy Connor's group is Alcaraz, Diminor, Fritz, and Musetti. And Bjorn Borg group is Sinner, Zverev, Shelton, and Felix. Of note, because of the late entry of Musetti, usually the same people play on the same day from the same group. Here they've had to split the players and have them play on different days and different groups, so that's a little bit different. I know that next year it's going to stop with the Paris Masters so that this doesn't happen again with the ATP Finals because it has certainly caused Musetti and Felix to miss out on some of the pre-tournament rituals like the photo shoot that we always see with the 8 players. So I'll let you go in whatever direction you want. We have finished 2 days of play already. Sinner got a win today. Zverev got a win in that group yesterday, and then Alcaraz got a win, and Fritz got a win today. So,
Yeah.
what's your take?
First of all, so when you say they're gonna stop doing it next year, what exactly are they gonna stop doing next year? Like, is the final gonna start a little bit later, or
No, Paris Masters will be the last tournament, and there will be a week between Paris Masters and the ATP Finals.
okay? And right now, there's not a week in between. They just go.
Well, yeah, there was those two ATP 250s that just happened.
Ah, okay, okay. I'll have to look into that. So on that note, yeah, no surprises so far in the finals, which has kind of been the theme of the tennis season in general. Like the top players have been pretty dominant, relatively speaking. Zverev did have his rough patch when Sinner was suspended due to the doping allegations, where he had a chance to take over world number one, was unable to do so. But that being said, like most of the time when Sinner and Alcaraz have both been healthy, both been playing, it's been them on top. Carlos had a little bit of struggle with Alex de Minaur there in the first set. He was up 4-1 break, ended up going to a tiebreaker, saw a little trouble, got through that, had a pretty dominant second set. Yannick Sinner played a couple close matches with Felix, had a first set today where it was 5-6, 30 love Felix. They looked destined for a tiebreaker. Yannick broke from 30 love 5-6. That for those of you that don't know, I know we've mentioned it, but indoor hard courts where this tournament is being played are usually the hardest courts to break on, with the exception of the Paris Masters, which played very slow. Um, so it's very impressive for Sinner to do that against a big server such as Felix, who he often plays close. Sinner also dominated the second set. Zverev was playing Ben Shelton. Ben Shelton's still been coming back from the shoulder injury that he suffered at the U.S. Open. He's looking better with each tournament, pretty close to 100%, but maybe not all the way there. Ben had a 6-3 lead in the second set tiebreaker after falling in the first set. Was serving, had a couple chances to close it out. Zverev hit an incredible pass at 6-3, and then Ben dumped a few points, which led to Zverev winning. Zverev let out a pretty loud roar after that to the crowd. He seemed quite excited. Those two are good friends, but Zverev's always happy to get a big win in a pressure situation, maybe a little confidence builder for him. And then Musetti, obviously losing to Novak in a grueling final, not expecting to get in, having a last second entry, just didn't seem to fully have himself there today. Taylor Fritz took care of him relatively easily. Um, so that's leaving all the favorites in. I mean, especially with all the favorites having one win notched on their belt, it looks like we're gonna have a Sinner versus wait one sec. We're gonna have Carlos and Sinner through. I think that's relatively out of the question. Um, I've heard a good point made on the Serve podcast today when I was listening that last year Sinner didn't even lose more than 4 games in a single set at the ATP Finals on the way to winning. Edik and I both had him as a huge favorite, expecting him to repeat again. We'll probably be expecting Alcaraz, Fritz, and Zverev to get through as well. Um, I don't really think Zverev's too thrilled to see Sinner, although he really doesn't like facing Carlos or Taylor Fritz either. So should he get through, we'd probably expect him to fall in the semis. And then Fritz might be able to give a good fight to Carlos. We did see him beat him at Labor Cup this year. Obviously, a lot of people have questioned the competitiveness of that event. But Taylor also pushed him to 4 in a close tiebreaker in that fourth set at Wimbledon and some other competitive matches. So I think maybe that's where I'd look to see an upset somewhere in this tournament. Maybe see a Taylor versus Yannick final where we get a little mix up from the Carlos Yannick special. But I think that any tennis fan can agree that watching Carlos and Yannick go at it is always phenomenal tennis as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that you said. I don't think it's a question about whether Sinner or Alcaraz will make it. It's more of a question of can somebody challenge Zverev or Fritz to get into the semifinals. I would say my only outside realistic shot would be someone like Felix. Obviously, he's got to get through Shelton first and then play against Zverev, who he has had success against this year. So we'll see if that happens. Obviously, a lot is on the line. World number one is on the line. There are a lot of scenarios, but more or less if Alcaraz just takes care of business and wins those three round robin matches, which he's going to be favored in, he'll finish world number one. And personally, I'd like to see Sinner and Alcaraz in the finals. It's been a Sinner and Alcaraz year. Let's just round out the year with the finals and see who takes the last match and will be crowned the ATP champ. So that's a review of all of the tournaments. I did want to mention one other thing that's been in the news, which is the battle of the sexes being reignited. Uh, Kyrgios and Sabalenka are set to play after Christmas in Dubai with a new version of the battle of the sexes. Obviously, people will remember Riggs and Billie Jean King, where Billie Jean King won, obviously a famous movie. And this version will feature new format. They are both only going to have one serve, and the court is going to be a little bit smaller on Sabalenka's size. I don't have the exact measurements, but Kyrgios will have less space to hit into. They're playing 2 out of 3 sets with a 10-point tiebreaker in the third. And like I said, it will be happening at the end of the year. Just give me your thoughts on this. If you care about it, if you're going to watch, and who you think is going to win.
Um, I do care about it. I will say that considering Nick's injury struggles over the last couple of years and just his nature, I'm a little bit concerned as to the level of intensity that will be coming into this. Obviously, Kyrgios and Sabalenka get along. I am a big fan of both players. Kyrgios was my favorite male player for a while when he was healthy and when he was playing. Anybody that's a tennis fan, love him or hate him, he's definitely a spectacle to watch. Um, I would say one serve probably actually favors Nick more than Sabalenka. I think that Sabalenka's had more serving troubles, and serve has really always been Nick's thing. Um, so I'm intrigued to see. I would have assumed that most of the modified rules would be there to help kind of level the fields between the men's player and the women's player. So that's a little bit questionable to me. Maybe if Nick got one and Sabalenka got two, that'd make a little more sense. It might be a little degrading to her at that point. Um, but I mean, I know that we've seen the stat about Sabalenka getting more RPMs on her forehand than all the men's players. Um, so it's very interesting to see how something like that maybe translates over to a matchup against the men's player. Nick hits very flat. Sabalenka hits a lot of topspin. I believe they're probably playing on indoor hard court. I would assume it's in Dubai, correct? Or
Yeah.
somewhere in the UAE. So probably doesn't play to Sabalenka's favor either. I mean, I think that even with Nick's injury struggles and even with him having an incredibly disappointing year that looks like he's headed closer to retirement than recovery, it's his match to dictate. If he wants to really put a beating on Sabalenka here, I think he could do so. I don't think that he's the type of guy to want to do that. He'll definitely play some tricky shots. He'll definitely go for some flashy points. Um, should he happen to get ahead too much, he'll probably ease up a little bit in certain areas. That being said, Sabalenka is the best player for this on the women's tour. Maybe Rybakina after what we just watched, but they're just she hits huge and she plays huge and she's very confident in her game and she's not afraid of a big stage. So I'm very interested to see what she brings to the table. And I would say if I were a betting man, I'd probably set the line at her to win. And this is taking into account how Nick will play it, like maybe over under 4.5 games. Um, I could
Four and a
see
half games, 4.5 games each set.
just overall. Sabalenka's line is to win 4 games. She loses it, 5 games, she wins it. I think that would be a fair line set given all the circumstances. Um, I'd love to be proven wrong, honestly. As much as I love Nick, I'd love to see Sabalenka chalk one in the win column for the women here and just go out there and smack him and let him know that the women can compete. Maybe we get to see a little bit more of this type of event, maybe a little bit more serious in this case. Uh, I'd really say the best evidence I have to back myself up is just Universal Tennis Rating or UTR, which is like a very common verified ranking system for tennis. Sabalenka's, I believe, in the 13s for UTR. I'm gonna double check that real quick as we speak. And Nick Kyrgios is more, yeah, Sabalenka's a 13.02. Nick Kyrgios at his highest sat closer to a 16, which is quite a significant jump from the 13s in UTR, which will land you around world number 1,000, actually, I believe, for the men's tennis, maybe a little bit higher and more than six or 700. So that's what we're looking at equivalency wise. That
Yeah,
being said, back to you, Edik.
yeah, you bring up some interesting points. First, I think that the rules that they made were sort of silly. I agree with you. The one serve would favor Nick. He often goes for a flat first serve on the second serve, so I think he feels more comfortable making it. And like you said, Sabalenka has struggled in the past. I also think the smaller court on her side doesn't really affect. I mean, he's not hitting like that many lines, where it would be a big issue. If you're gonna have a battle of the sexes, I would just prefer it to be straight up, regular, 2 out of 3 sets. Everybody gets 2 serves type of thing. I do fear that Nick will take it lightly and sort of clown around and joke around, which if you know me, you know I don't like that. On paper, like you
Yeah,
said, we're just saying on paper, if you take a 16 UTR versus a 13 UTR, it shouldn't be a competitive match, and she should win less than 7 games. I would set the line higher. I think 5 games is not is just way too low. I would set it at 7 games. If she did more than seven, 6-4, 6-3, then she would, her UTR would go up. If she did less, that's what's expected. So
I
if
actually think with a 13 to a 16, the expectation would be like win a game, maybe two. But Nick's
yeah,
not a 16 anymore. Nick's probably hovering closer to like a 14 and a half with his wrist injury and seriousness level right now.
right. Yeah, so I'm saying the 7 games, just given that Sabalenka's in form, like you said,
Yeah.
Kyrgios is struggling with the injuries. If they're both playing at their 100%, like Kyrgios at his Wimbledon final level and Sabalenka right now, I don't think anybody would disagree that Kyrgios would handle her easily. But there's intrigue with these specific rules and the fact that Kyrgios is a little bit injured. Having said that, I expect it to be like a 7-5, 6-4 for Kyrgios, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if it creates buzz, and it's
Yeah.
just another thing for the casual fans to tune into, which is never a bad thing to get more fans in the tennis world. Um,
Absolutely agreed. Should
yeah,
we do some drop or lob to
yeah.
wrap up for the people?
Let's do it. So I'm going to ask you some questions, Nathan. Drop or lob. Drop it if you don't like it. Lob it if you do like it. Let's start with, and it's happening all over the tennis world right now. Almost every single professional player is spending their off season in the Maldives. So drop or lob, if you were a pro tennis player and you had a little bit of an off season right now, are you going to the Maldives? Drop or lob?
I'm gonna drop it. I'm going home, man. I'm going home. Like it's such a long season. You're away for 10, 11 months out of the year. I mean, I've been on vacation right now for about a week. I'm like, I want to eat the food that I'm used to eating. I want to go sleep in my own bed. Like you want to see your pet, maybe your family, like your significant other if they're not traveling with you. Like, I mean, it's great to go travel, but you're traveling all year. Now, if you're from the Maldives, and go home to the Maldives. But if not, I mean, I think I'm going home and I'm just enjoying a couple weeks to rest and reset. I know like Alcaraz talked about in the Netflix documentary that, and yes, he does love going to Ibiza and getting his partying in, but he said that he always values some time at home whenever he can find it. I know that Nick, who we were just talking about, Nick Kyrgios, also loves going home whenever he can. So I think for me personally, I'm going home. Uh, but I can absolutely understand the desire to have a nice, stunning vacation and get a little relaxation when afforded. Really, anything besides training every single day like a psychopath throughout the entire off season seems preferable for most of them.
Absolutely. I would agree with you on that. I would drop it. Okay, next one. Drop or lob. If you win the toss at the beginning of the match, choosing to return rather than choosing to serve. Drop or lob.
So me personally, I'm gonna have to log this. I think you can definitely attest to this. I'm almost 6'2". You would think I would have a bomb of a serve. I do not. My serve is probably, in my opinion, the weakest aspect of my game. Maybe my volleys. Um, I like to think I read people's body language and toss relatively well on serves. I enjoy returning the serve, enjoy trying to break somebody's serve to start a game. For those of you that don't play tennis or watch a ton, maybe you're getting newer into this. In tennis, especially as your level increases, you are expected to win your service games in a tennis match is considered an advantage since you get to hit the ball into the box wherever you want from an uphill trajectory like that to start the point. So usually people choose to serve, but for me personally, I like to put a little bit of pressure on my opponent's mental, get a read on them, and hide the fact that my serve totally sucks. So I'm going for receive. I think the WTA tour maybe sees a couple more receives than the ATP. ATP players usually once they hit the top, most of them have good serves. Although it is interesting, it's actually something that there is a website that indexes it, and I would love to bring that up next week on which players serve and return. I know that some betters that use advanced analytics usually check that when considering certain lines. So I'd love to maybe make a little note on certain players that like to serve first and some that like to return first. But I'm going to identify with the returners.
Interesting. I knew you were going to say that, and that's why I wanted to ask you if you will allow me. I think the
Well,
complete opposite. I always choose to serve because you want to be confident. You want to show
yeah,
that I'm ready. I'm in
you're an
control.
alpha.
I'm in control. The returner doesn't know where I'm going to serve. So the pressure is actually on them. If they choose to return, that's wonderful for me. I'm always choosing to serve. And I've done that since the college days. Set the tone early, just like in the football game. You're choosing to get that ball. It's in your hands, it's in your destiny. That's just me personally. But I do understand the logic behind returning serve. All right, last one. And this is reference to college tennis. Drop or lob, playing lets on the serve, meaning I hit the serve, it hits the net, and it goes over. Rather than redoing it, we play through it like they do in college. Drop or lob, doing that on the pro tour.
On the pro tour, I'm going to call drop it simply because we have chair umpires. We don't have any need for that. The intention of the game is to serve the ball into the box, not to hit it off the net and let it drop in. For a little context, the reason why in college tennis they allow people to play the point out, as in there is no let in college tennis. If you serve it and it hits the net and goes in any capacity as a live ball, is because college tennis players, Coach Edik, I'm sure, will say he doesn't know anything about this, but they tend to sometimes be a little dishonest without a chair umpire behind them to hold them accountable. And there got to be a point in high level college tennis where if somebody hit a big serve that was an ace or close to the line, the returner would simply call let since they held the power. And the server was helpless to that and just had to replay a point that they clearly won. So the solution was simply to do away with lets. Um, I think that if you wanted to play a sport where luck determines your wins, then you should just go gamble all day. But if you want to play a sport where you actually need some skill to win the match, you might as well go ahead and play the game of tennis how it was intended to be played, and let that ball go into the box. We don't pay the chair umpires for nothing. Although I will say there have been some questionable calls out of some lower level chair umpires lately. That would be another fun segment for us.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Although I would say, having been a college player, it was never really a big deal to play the lets. There was, at least for me, never really a time where it just dribbled over. If there was, it evens out over the season. You get used to it right away. If it hits the net during the point, you keep playing the point. So why should we have to redo it, when it's on the serve? I understand that's how the rules were written, but I'm a strong advocate of playing through the lets. I don't think there's a reason not to. But that's just me personally. And that's why this is so fun because Nathan and I tend to disagree on a lot
Yeah,
of things.
yeah, and you guys would think that we went over those questions beforehand and came up with some debate topics, but that was just right off rip. We disagreed on all three, which is why we make a good pair on a podcast because him and I we think differently about a lot of these things, but it's more fun that way for me, and I think it's more fun for Edik as well.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Nathan.
Yep.
That is it for today's episode. We'll be back next week with a recap of the ATP Finals, and we look forward to seeing you guys then.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We'll be back to our regular schedule. We're gonna be trying to stick to Sundays, uploading around 8 p.m. I believe we're gonna have a special guest on for you guys on Sunday. We're gonna start getting more of our friends that are in the tennis field on here, and we're really excited to get their viewpoints and different aspects of what they've done in the tennis industry, from playing to coaching, to just working in it. And yeah, we will see you guys next Sunday to start getting into that. A nice short episode for everybody. I think if I didn't yap as much, maybe a little shorter, but I know you guys love it. And we're going to wrap it up here. We will see you guys.